Morning, everyone, and welcome to the 7th meeting of the 2024 Interim Joint Committee on Education. I would ask all the members and guests, please silence your cell phones. Any members have any introductions or comments they want to make at this time? If not, Landon, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll. Here. Senator Funky Frommeyer. Present. Senator Givens. Senator Higdon. Senator Meredith. Senator Neal. Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas. Senator Tishner. Senator Williams. Here. Senator Wilson. Here. Senator Wise.
Here.
Representative Baker. Representative Bauman. Present. Representative Bojanowski.
Here.
Representative Brown. Representative Callaway, Emily.
Present.
Representative Callaway, Josh.
Present.
Representative Decker. Representative Doan. Representative Jackson.
Present.
Representative Lewis.
Here.
Representative Massaroni. Representative McCool.
Here.
Representative Proctor. Present. Representative Rayborn.
Here.
Representative Rawlings. Present. Representative Raymond. Representative Riley. Here. Representative Timoney. Here. Representative Truitt.
Here.
Representative Wilner.
Here.
Co-Chair West. Co-Chair Tipton.
Here. We do have a quorum. At this time, members, you should have a copy of the minutes from our November 8th meeting in your packets. Do I have a motion to approve? Make a motion. Second. A motion. Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Yeah. At this time, we do have a rather full agenda. Members, you've got a lot of information in your packets. We've got a lot of ground to cover today. But I do want to take a brief moment. And I know we have some members who this will be their last meeting, their Interim Joint Committee on Education, possibly. And I know Representative Rollins is moving over to the Senate. I don't know your committee assignments for next year, but just in case you're not back, you have any comments you want to make? Very briefly, Representative Rollins.
Oh, no, I will be a member of the Education Committee.
So we haven't got rid of you yet?
No.
Okay, very good. So we know you're coming back.
Thank you.
And I know, I don't believe Representative Raymond is here. I know she is leaving the General Assembly to go for the Metro Council, but appreciate her service on the committee. And Representative Timoney, would you have some comments? You have any comments you want to share? Thank you for your service on the committee.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, the committee. You know, obviously education is near and dear to my heart. I've had the awesome opportunity to work in several capacities in education. You know, with starting out, you know, my mom was a special education teacher and my dad was an Ivy League professor. So I got quite the spectrum growing up of educational capacities. But the one thing that was really important in our family was giving back and serving others. I had a lot of opportunities to pursue different careers, but I chose education because it was one that you can definitely give back on. And I think that where we are personally right now in Kentucky, even in the wake of, you know, the big amendment that everybody's talking about, there's still so much work to do. And the commitment from, you know, for what we're going to do for our early childhood through elementary, through middle to high and to higher ed, we've got to stay committed. If we are going to create an environment of prosperity for the Commonwealth, it's through education. It's through education. It's through education. It's through education. When we have an educated workforce, we're going to attract employers that pay more. And when people are paid more, they contribute more to the economics of the community and the Commonwealth. And I think that we need to continue attracting those companies, and we're going to do it by making sure our workforce is competent and skilled. And I feel good in the work that we've done up to this point, but there's still a lot of work to do. And I won't be here physically, but I will definitely be monitoring from wherever I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Tipton. Representative Timoney. Too many T's. Representative Timoney, would you join me in showing our appreciation? Thank you. The first item on our agenda today is a report on SJR 170, the feasibility of postbaccalaureate programs. Would the presenters that are here come to the table? And I believe we also may have some who are available via online. If I see Dr. Thompson's here, if him and the ones who are presenting online would identify yourself for the record, I will swear in the oath.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Aaron Thompson, the president of the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education.
Thank you. Scott Friedman, Principal, Deloitte Consulting.
Thank you. Amy Whitmire, Specialist Leader with Deloitte Consulting.
Okay, I also know that we have some other folks online from our universities that they will not be part of the presentation, but they will be available for questions as well as those in person. Would you presenters raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, please proceed, President Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee. First of all, I just want to take the opportunity to thank those that are moving on to other places. Representative Timoney, what a joy it's been to work with you. I love your brain. I love the way you think. Thank you for your service. I also want to thank the presidents and other university and KCTCS officials who are with us today. If you have any questions, we have them represented, so you can clearly ask. I want to thank those that have been a part of this, and I want to thank the legislature for giving us SJR 170. Several things that I'll have to say before we get started, and I'll make it fast, is that we still know that the most direct route to an educated workforce and a good economy is through higher ed. Doesn't have to be a 4-year degree, but through higher ed. We've seen this over and over again. Research shows it. And what we need to do in Kentucky is even to get better. We know that, but I want to brag a little bit. Kentucky was one of the first states, if not the first state, to bounce back in enrollment after COVID. Last year, we set some enrollment gain records, and this year we are doing the same. Our graduation rates are up, our attainment rates up, and our retention rates are up. We're getting people through. We got a 4-year degree again for those that are worried. Our student loans are significantly down. People graduating with less debt than ever. We're taking more of the money that the campuses have gained through other sources and putting it towards student success, and I'm proud of that. So I would be remiss as the head of higher education that I didn't take the time to thank all of you who are taking part in looking at exactly where we need to go in the future in higher ed. And my ask is that you be proactive partners with us to make sure that we get there and do it in a manner that keeps Kentucky moving forward. So thank you for your work, and thank you for giving us this to take a look at. I won't spend a lot of time talking. I'll let Deloitte jump in because we got a lot to cover. But SJR, I really want to thank Deloitte. I think they did exactly the job we asked them to do. A fairly detailed set of reports here that they boiled it down into a very easy way of thinking about it as you make your decisions about where you want to go next year. The other item I will talk a little bit about later on is the need for us to truly have a program approval, program review process that may not call for an SJR down the road again in this area, because I think it is important that we do the things that are good in Kentucky to align mission with the building of our regions as well as the state as a whole. With that in mind, Mr. Chair, I'll ask Deloitte to start their presentation.
Thank you, committee, and thank you so much, Dr. Thompson. Thank you for your time today. My name is Scott Friedman, and I'm a principal with Deloitte Consulting with a focus on higher education. I lead the firm's higher education strategy capability. I've been with Deloitte for approximately 9 years, focused exclusively on management and strategy consulting for colleges, universities, and associated and affiliated entities. And I have been doing that exact work for 19 years in total. With me today is my colleague, Amy Whitmire, whom I will now have introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amy Whitmire, and I am a specialist leader with Deloitte Consulting as well, also with a focus on higher education and higher education strategy. I have worked with Deloitte for over 4 years, but prior to my time at Deloitte, I spent 14 years in higher education administration directly, including roles in career services and academic program administration. Thank you.
If we could pull up the slides.
The slides are pulled up.
Oh, they are? Apologies, I do not see them on my screen. Okay, well, I will just articulate and suggest when the slide. So if we could move to slide 2, that says full report table of contents at the top. Our work was conducted. Oh, excellent. Yes, if you could jump to the next slide, that would be fantastic. Perfect. Thank you. Our work was conducted pursuant to the requirements of SJR 170, which occasioned 5 analyses, specifically feasibility reviews of proposed doctoral programs at Eastern Kentucky University, Murray State University, Western Kentucky University, and Kentucky State University, as well as a review of the CPE coordinated program approval process. Amy's going to talk through the details of our scope in a minute. You have previously been provided our full report. Today, we will focus on the executive summary, specifically a review of the scope of our study, the approach and methodology that we undertook, and the summary of our findings, the elements that are encircled on the left. I will now turn it over to Amy to start to walk through the executive summary.
Thank you, Scott. If we could head to slide 4, please. Our first section of the executive summary discusses the scope of the study, and I will share that with you all now. We'll head to the next slide, slide 5, please. This is an overview of the SJR 170 study. CPE engaged Deloitte Consulting between August and November of this year, 2024, in a 14-week project to conduct 4 feasibility studies and offer recommendations regarding the overall new program approval process going forward. The study related to the feasibility of 4 different universities pursuing 4 different post-baccalaureate programs. Here listed on the slide is the list of those universities and programs. So first, the Eastern Kentucky University, EKU's proposal for a doctoral program for osteopathic medicine, or a DO program. Next, Murray State University's proposal for a doctoral program of practice and licensure in veterinary medicine, or a DVM. Third, Western Kentucky University's proposal to launch 1 or more PhD programs leading to the R2, or high research designation, from the Carnegie classification, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. And finally, Kentucky State University's proposal for a PhD program in integrated agroecology and sustainable agriculture. Importantly, the charge of this report was a feasibility assessment, specifically the intersection of a proposed program at a particular university. So the assessment was confined to this narrow scope: feasibility of program X at University Y. Finally, the study offers recommendations to CPE and policymakers regarding the evaluation and approval of future new program proposals. If we could head to the next slide, please. For each of the 4 feasibility studies, we include here a 1-page proposal overview, which is meant to give the reader a snapshot of the university, their motivating factors in pursuing the program, helpful definitions for those not as close to the discipline or not as close to higher education, and fast facts on the right to share the scope of the proposed program or endeavor. We have listed these proposal overviews from the largest and most material to the smallest. EKU's proposal representing the largest target enrollment and largest required new hiring of faculty and staff. Here with EKU, the proposed program is a College of Osteopathic Medicine, which would produce DOs. And within the report, we will also use the language of DO School or College of Osteopathic Medicine, COM. This contrasts, and this DO program contrasts with allopathic medical schools, which produce MDs, though most DO graduates tend to practice in primary care settings. Noteworthy to this endeavor would be the fact that most colleges of osteopathic medicine, or COMs, and this is the case in EKU's proposal, employ a distributive model of clinical education that sends students into external facilities for their third and fourth year rotations. On the right here on this slide, you can see the proposed program launch date of fall of 2028, the target cohort size for each class of 150 students with a full enrollment of 600 students, and a significant number of new faculty and staff required. Ultimately, EKU's stated motivations are to help alleviate the shortage of physicians in Kentucky and in rural communities, and to enhance the university's brand and to increase the financial position of the university. Now we'll turn to the next slide of Murray State. As we turn to Murray State University, the proposal relates to a doctoral program in veterinary medicine, or DVM. Importantly, the Vet Med program would employ a distributive model for clinical education, similar to the DO program at EKU we just reviewed, where students would complete their education via a network of clinical partners. On the right, you can see a proposed program launch date of fall 2027, a target cohort size of 70 students with a total enrollment of 280 by year 5, and our estimates of 15 incremental faculty and 42 staff and administrators to operate the school. Here, as shared by Murray State, their motivating factors in pursuing this DVM program are to help address the shortage of rural veterinarians, to offer the first veterinary medicine program in Kentucky, allowing for Kentuckians to stay close to home for their studies, and finally, to build on their existing agricultural facilities and expertise. Next slide, please. Now with WKU, their proposal is for baccalaureate expansion is a bit different because it relates to their Carnegie classification status. Carnegie classification in the United States is a way to categorize U.S. higher education institutions. WKU would like to achieve the R2 research designation, classified as high research activity. To achieve this status, which is released and named every 3 years, a university must confer, and that is important, not enroll, but confer, a minimum of 20 doctoral research degrees and conduct a minimum of $5 million in total research expenditures annually. There are currently no R2 universities in Kentucky. This proposal would be a longer-term aspiration, beginning with WKU's intention of launching a PhD in data sciences first, then likely adding other PhD programs to achieve the R2 status. For the data sciences program, which the project team analyzed in depth, the scope of the PhD program would be ultimately for 29 new PhD students enrolled, with 2 faculty required. WKU is pursuing this designation to elevate the university's profile, helping it to attract high-quality faculty, students, and external funding. Additionally, They hope to capitalize on economic growth in the region, particularly as it relates to the first proposed PhD program of data sciences. And finally, if we can move to the next slide for Kentucky State University. The proposed program is a PhD in integrated agroecology, the integrative study of the nexus of plants, animals, soil, environment, and humans, with the goal of long-run enhancements to agricultural production, environmental quality, and non-renewable resource management. This would be the first doctoral program of its kind in Kentucky. This proposed PhD program for KSU has the target launch date of fall 2025, with 20 total targeted enrolled PhD students and 4 new faculty required. KSU is motivated to pursue this PhD program to maximize their already high levels of research and funding, elevating awareness of KSU's research profile, while also capitalizing on their strengths in environmental studies, aquaculture, and other agriculture programs. Now I'll pass to Scott to discuss the approach and methodology of our report.
Thank you so much, Amy. If we could jump to the next slide. I will now spend some time walking you through our approach and methodology. Please note that this section applies to all 4 of the doctoral program feasibility studies. If we can jump to slide 11. Excuse me. To promote analytical rigor, objectivity, and consistency across the 4 feasibility studies, we established a set of principles to guide our analysis. I will not walk through all of these guiding principles, but there are a few that I think are worth highlighting specifically. First of all, we felt that it was important to engage extensively with the leadership at the 4 institutions to understand their goals, visions, and plans for the proposed programs. But we needed to balance that with ensuring that our findings were exclusively evidence-based. In the report, you will see that our findings are mapped to validated and reputable data sources, including the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Dataset, otherwise known as IPEDS, SHIO, and industry organizations such as the American Veterinary Medicine Association and the American Association of Colleges of Osteopathic Medicine. We engaged with a diverse set of stakeholders, both within and outside the proposing universities, to develop a holistic perspective on the programs and the likely benefits and risks inherent in each. We took a forward-looking perspective, meaning that we reviewed the programs, processes, and relevant statutes from both a current state and future state perspective, incorporating anticipated changes to the broader higher education ecosystem and landscape. We prioritized attention on analysis that would materially impact the feasibility assessments. And finally, we attempted to arrive at a balance between the goals of the individual institutions and how each proposed program would potentially address the broader needs of the Commonwealth and its citizenry. If you'll jump to the next slide, please. Thank you. Over the course of the last 3+ months, our team is engaged with a diverse group of stakeholders across the various scopes of analysis. We spoke with more than 75 university administrators, staff, and faculty at the proposing institutions, and spent time on each of the campuses, engaging in person with their leadership teams. We interviewed CPE leadership and met with them regularly to promote alignment and transparency. We met with a dozen government and community officials, including state senators, representatives, and representatives in the governor's office. We engaged with leadership from 7 other institutions, including the University of Kentucky, KCTCS, and Moorhead in the Commonwealth, as well as Auburn, Loyola Marymount, UMES, and Texas Tech outside of Kentucky. These interviews supplemented benchmarking conducted with more than 100 peer institutions of the proposing universities leveraging publicly available data. And we met with leaders from industry associations, received and reviewed position letters from industry organizations and practitioners, and spoke with potential employers and clinical partners relevant to a few of the proposals. If you could jump to the next slide, please. Thank you. In addition to those qualitative inputs, we reviewed hundreds of documents provided by CPE and the 4 proposing institutions. These data were focused on enrollment, student success, institutional and programmatic finances, facilities, and intended staffing for the various programs. We also validated institutional assumptions by leveraging a number of external data sources, including credit agency findings, accreditation reports and standards, demographic and labor market trends, and information from the Kentucky Performance Funding Model. If you could jump to the next slide, please. Therefore, to develop a digestible picture of our feasibility assessment, which Dr. Thompson referred to earlier, to develop a digestible picture of our feasibility assessments to align with SJR 170, we developed a set of criteria on which to evaluate each of the proposed programs. Given the requirements of SJR 170 that each institution's recent financial performance, sufficiency of research facilities where appropriate, and performance on student success outcomes be considered in the analysis, we evaluated each proposing institution across those 3 dimensions. We then evaluated the feasibility of each proposed program across 6 different future-looking dimensions, a few of which were not relevant for all of the programs, as you'll see in a second. The first was faculty recruitment. Specifically, can the program recruit and retain sufficient qualified faculty to deliver the program? The second was student demand. Is there sufficient student interest for the specific program and/or field of study? Number 3 was workforce alignment. How aligned is the program with meeting existing or future anticipated workforce needs in the Commonwealth? And will graduates find meaningful placements in their chosen fields? Number 4 was accreditation standards. Will the institution be able to obtain and maintain necessary accreditation for the program? Number 5, which Amy's referenced a few times previously, had to do with clinical placements. Where hands-on practical experience is required for the degree, will the program be able to secure these placements? And number 6 was a cost-benefit analysis. How do the costs associated with launching and operating the program compare to the expected revenues and other returns that would be generated by the program? And so with this rubric in mind, I will turn it over to Amy to walk through our findings relative to each of the proposed programs.
Thank you. And before we dive into the summary of findings, I would like to ground you all in the meaning of the 1-page feasibility assessments you are about to view. For each of the dimensions that Scott just outlined, we performed a detailed analysis, which is contained in the full report, and summarized each dimension with an accompanying color of red, yellow, or green. What we are communicating in these summaries is that for each of the dimensions, such as workforce alignment or student demand, we may have no or few feasibility concerns, indicated by green, some feasibility concerns, indicated by yellow, significant feasibility concerns, indicated by red. Finally, I wanted to share that the red, yellow, green marker does not represent a go or no-go judgment. This is for policymakers and decision makers to ultimately decide. Our analysis is meant to highlight with data and evidence where there may be feasibility concerns so that, again, decision makers may make informed decisions and/or discuss these risks before launching these new programs. So with that in mind, let's review the first feasibility assessment for EKU. As mentioned, for each of the 4 program proposals, we have developed a summarized feasibility assessment meant to summarize the detailed report, provide a snapshot of the red, yellow, green, which I just mentioned, and report out an overall feasibility assessment. All of this, again, summarizes a very detailed report. First, we'll review EKU and the proposed College of Osteopathic Medicine, or COM. As we dive into the assessment, it's important to note that many of the feasibility concerns here that we've noted would be present at any higher ed institution looking to start a DO program, not necessarily specific to EKU, given the cost and the scale of this endeavor. High costs and high accreditation standards elevate the risk profile. Now let's head to each dimension. First, with regards to financial health, we noted some feasibility concerns here driven by EKU's declining enrollments, contributing to declining operating revenues, and increasing debt levels that have outpaced the growth in cash and investments. For student success, we have no or few concerns noted here. EKU outperforms its peer group average in first-year retention, and its 6-year graduation rate is on par with the national average for 4-year universities. EKU also performed better than other Kentucky public comprehensive universities on 5 out of 9 metrics monitored in the comprehensive funding model. With regards to research, EKU, like the other comprehensives in this study, is not a research institution, so it is understandable that their current research expenditures are low. We have indicated some feasibility risks for them because their current research expenditures are lower than even the median for the regional comprehensives. This is relevant because the accreditation body for DO schools requires DO schools to invest in significant research and scholarly output. So this is a place that EKU will need to invest in to meet those accreditation standards. Now, here's where we transition from the first 3 dimensions into the assessment criteria related to the proposal itself. First, now, with the cost-benefit analysis. A DO school is a resource-intensive endeavor. By our projections, operating expenses for the new DO school may exceed $16 million under moderate planning assumptions and $21 million under conservative assumptions, not to mention $70 to $75 million in capital investments needed to construct new facilities associated with the DO school. That said, even with high operating expenses and without ongoing state support for operations, our projections show that the COM generates a comfortable surplus under both conservative and moderate scenarios, which may be reinvested into the DO school or EKU more broadly. This is consistent with what we've seen at other DO schools in the United States. The EKU COM is also projected to generate significant economic impact in Madison County and Kentucky more broadly. With regards to student demand, demand for seats in DO programs is high today and projected to remain high in the future, even after accounting for a possible 26% growth in DO programs in the United States as other institutions also look to enter this market. With regards to workforce alignment, data and analysis validates EKU's claims that there is a shortage of primary care physicians in Kentucky. Graduates of DO programs pursue careers in primary care at higher rates than graduates of MD programs, who tend to go into specialties at higher rates, which positions a DO program to address this primary care shortage. In faculty recruitment, and we note that the last 3 criteria of faculty recruitment, accreditation requirements, and clinical placements would likely apply to any institution looking to launch a DO school, again, considering the materiality and risk. For faculty recruitment, we have noted elevated feasibility concerns based on the magnitude of investment here. We estimate that EKU will need to hire at least 19 faculty FTEs, and they will command salaries that far exceed EKU's current average faculty salaries. The dean of the EKU school will likely need to be the highest compensated employee at EKU. For accreditation standards, the Commission on Osteopathic College Accreditation, or COCA, sets a very high bar for institutions to clear to receive accreditation for DO schools. Of note, EKU will need to hold over $48 million in reserves until it graduates its first class. EKU expects to ask the legislature for this funding, which would revert back to the state once EKU graduates its first class. The reserves funding is meant to serve as a protection for students who enroll at EKU before the school is accredited, as it would be used to compensate those students should EKU not fulfill its duties and achieve full accreditation. Other accreditation standards that create elevated risk for EKU are research and scholarly activity. Since EKU does not do much research now, they will need to invest significantly to meet COCA's research requirements, as well as clinical placements, as EKU will need to ensure the quality of the education provided at distributed clinical sites, as well as the clinical facilities. And finally, with regards to clinical placements, DO schools do not have teaching hospitals. Instead, they send students into the community for their third and fourth years to receive clinical training at hospitals, clinics, and other medical facilities. This creates feasibility concerns and risks for any potential DO school, as they need to secure a number of those clinical placements. At scale, EKU's COM will ultimately need to facilitate clinical education for approximately 300 students, fulfilling 4 rotations per year per student. At the time of our assessment, EKU could not enter into formal agreements with partners since they have not yet been given statutory approval to launch the school. They have secured letters of support from several community partners, including Baptist Health Richmond, ARH, and CHI St. Joseph, which we have noted in the report. However, the project team did not receive evidence of an anchor partner or sufficient clinical placement capacity to remove these feasibility concerns. Now let's move to Murray State University and the feasibility assessment there. And as a reminder, this is a proposed college of veterinary medicine. For financial health, we have noted no or few concerns here. Murray State has generally balanced growth in net position and a strong balance sheet. For student success, no or few concerns noted here either. Murray State's student success metrics have consistently outperformed the averages of their Kentucky comprehensive peers, and Murray has performed better than or equivalent to other Kentucky public comprehensive institutions on 8 of 9 metrics tracked in the Kentucky Performance Funding Model. For research, we've noted no or few concerns here. While Murray is not a research institution, their current research expenditures are on par with the median of other public comprehensives in Kentucky, and notably, they have existing facilities and equipment in veterinary sciences that can support growth in research in this area. Now turning to the proposed CVM, or College of Veterinary Medicine itself. For the cost-benefit analysis, a CVM is a resource-intensive endeavor. By our projections, operating expenses for the new CVM school may exceed $13 million per year. Notably, we used peer benchmarks to inform the assumptions behind faculty and staff hiring needs, the biggest expense driver in the model. Murray State asserts that they can operate a CVM with a much leaner staff than their peers, specifically with 8 FTEs, including 3 student workers and this compares to 40 FTEs by our estimates. This is because they have existing animal care staff that they can scale across the vet school. That said, our projections accounted for the full staffing needs of the college, including admission staff and clinical placements administration, and we could not validate that they have existing staff that could be scaled in these areas. In our model, the CVM would generate a modest surplus under moderate planning assumptions and a deficit under conservative assumptions. The vet school is also projected to generate significant economic impact in Callaway County and Kentucky more broadly. For student demand for seats in DVM programs is high today and is projected to remain high in the future, even after accounting for a possible 45% growth in DVM programs in the US, as other institutions also look to enter this market and established schools plan to grow their existing class sizes. For workforce alignment, we indicated some feasibility risk here due to concerns that the proposed CVM is not the best solution to address the shortage of rural veterinarians in Kentucky. Importantly, while there is evidence of certainly a shortage of large farm animal veterinarians in rural counties in Kentucky, historical data and industry experts dispute claims that a new in-state veterinary school can meaningfully address this shortage. They point to challenges in the vet student pipeline. Most vet students aspire to care for companion animals, and most vet students, approximately 80%, come from urban and suburban areas and plan to return after graduations. DVM students on average also carry high debt levels and are attracted to companion care positions in urban and suburban settings because those jobs tend to pay more. Murray State disputes these limitations and believes that they are well positioned to address the rural vet shortage due to their historical success sending graduates of professional programs into rural communities. Regarding faculty recruitment, we note some feasibility concerns based on the magnitude of investment as well as a current documented shortage of veterinary medical faculty in the US. We estimate that Murray will need to hire approximately 15 new faculty FTEs, and they will command salaries that far exceed Murray's current average faculty salaries. Murray has accounted for these high salaries in their plans, and they have some vet faculty on staff currently who could teach in the new CVM, which mitigates some, but not all, of the risk here. Accreditation standards. The AVMA, which is the governing accreditation body, sets a high bar for institutions to clear to receive accreditation for CVMs. Murray State will need to produce substantial high-quality research, which requires significant investment, including a potential investment in startup packages to compete for faculty, which peers estimate at approximately $300,000 to $400,000 per research faculty member. They will also need to provide facilities sufficient to house animals for teaching and research. While they are currently planning the construction of a new veterinary sciences building that will serve the needs of future veterinary students, as well as students in their pre-vet and vet tech programs, which they've already secured funding for from the legislature, some peer program deans noted that the animal welfare requirements for animal sciences facilities differ from veterinary medical facilities, and the project team was unable to validate that Murray has factored that into their current design and construction plans. Related to clinical placements, CVMs use the distributive models of veterinary medicine. They do not have teaching hospitals. Instead, they send students into the community for their third and fourth years to receive clinical training at hospitals, clinics, zoos, and other facilities. This creates feasibility concerns and risks for any potential CVM using the distributive model, as they need to secure a number of clinical placements. Compared to DO programs, which we just reviewed for EKU, CVMs using the distributive model cannot scale clinical placements to the same degree. They typically can only put 1 to 2 students at a clinical site at a time, leading us to estimate they will need over 200 clinical partners to fulfill curricular requirements. While many surveyed vets across the Commonwealth have expressed interest in providing clinical rotations to Murray students, Murray may need to look outside of the state to find all necessary clinical partners, particularly in animal medicine specialties where the potential clinical sites are more limited. Lincoln Memorial CVM across the border in Tennessee as a gauge sends students into 35 states for clinical rotations, though we note that LMU's student body is larger than Murray's proposed. Let's move on to Western Kentucky now. And again, this is the proposal to achieve R2 status, beginning with a PhD in data sciences. And this is important to note here that this is a small investment relative to the DO and vet schools we just reviewed. This is few faculty and no new facilities. Also note that for this feasibility assessment slide, we evaluated some criteria with the broader R2 pursuit in mind, and others on the basis of their first program proposal, again, a PhD in data sciences. For financial health, some concerns are noted here, largely stemming from several years of enrollment declines, coupled with rising expenses. While these financial pressures are common in public higher education right now, it does raise some concerns about the ability to fund new investments. For student success, no or few concerns are noted here. WKU outperforms peers on student success metrics. With regards to research, WKU's current research expenditures already exceed the research expenditures needed to achieve R2 status. They have also made some foundational policy changes to faculty workload and invested in central research infrastructure, which positions them for research growth. So we have noted no or few feasibility concerns here. For cost benefit, like most PhD programs, WKU's proposed PhD in data sciences is not projected to make money, though this is a modest investment with plans to hire just 2 new faculty. The biggest expense is student tuition waivers and stipends. While harder to measure, the program is projected to create qualitative benefits for WKU, including increasing attractiveness for faculty and students and opportunities to grow extramural funding. Now, with regards to student demand for data sciences programs across levels is high, and WKU only aspires to bring a few students into the program each year. Therefore, we have noted no or few concerns here. Workforce alignment. Data sciences degrees would directly prepare students to either create research in service of Kentucky industry or obtain roles in high demand fields in Kentucky and surrounding areas with growth projected. Our analysis did not reveal any concerns here. Faculty recruitment. WKU is only proposing hiring 2 new faculty, so this is a modest investment and initiative, and WKU's starting salaries are competitive. Accreditation standards. The proposed PhD programs would need to be accredited by the SAC COC under the substantive change process, but we see no barriers to earning this accreditation. And finally, the clinical placements dimension is not applicable to WKU and their R2 proposal. And finally, we will head to Kentucky State University's proposal for the integrated agroecology PhD. As with WKU, KSU's proposal is a small investment relative to the DO and vet schools, few faculty, and no new facilities required. The biggest benefit of this proposal is that it resides in KSU's land grant program, which opens up to federal funding sources. For financial health, our report noted significant feasibility concerns stemming from recent financial performance as well as financial management practices. While KSU is making progress on its management improvement plan, they still have work to do to improve the stabilization of the institution's finances, raising questions about their ability to launch a new initiative while maintaining focus on financial improvement. Note that our assessment for KSU was only completed through FY22, as that is the last audit available for KSU and thus the most recent financial data that we can validate. KSU notes some improvement in recent years, though we cannot validate this due to the lack of audited financial statements. For student success, we note significant feasibility concerns here, as KSU's student success metrics by national standards and compared to other comprehensive institutions and other public HBCUs across the United States lag significantly, raising questions about their ability to launch a new initiative focused on graduate students without risking further performance on student success goals. For research infrastructure, no concerns are noted here. KSU's current research expenditures far exceed other comprehensive institutions, thanks largely to their land grant program and the federal funding that it has received. They also have infrastructure related to this particular PhD program in place to serve as a foundation for the proposed program. For cost benefit, again, like most PhD programs, KSU's proposed PhD in integrated agroecology is not projected to make money, though it is a modest investment with plans to hire just 3 new faculty. The biggest expense is student tuition waivers and stipends. Of note, KSU has access to several federal funding streams, again, thanks to its land grant and HBCU status, which can fund many of the program's projected operating costs, minimizing the subsidization that this program would require from KSU. For student demand, integrated agroecology is a small but growing field, and the assessment projects healthy demand here. KSU's current master's programs could serve as a pipeline to help them achieve their enrollment goals, and they currently have MOUs in place with several international governments and institutions that also create potential student pipelines. For workforce alignment, this program would directly contribute to Kentucky's agriculture industry and may particularly benefit small and mid-sized farmers, not just through its potential graduate pipeline, but also its research potential. For faculty recruitment, again, low or no feasibility concerns here. KSU is only proposing hiring 3 new faculty. We see no concerns about the potential pipeline for these faculty. For accreditation standards, the proposed PhD programs would need to be accredited by the SAC-COC, again under the substantive change process, but we see no significant barriers to earning this accreditation. As with WKU, the clinical placements dimension is not applicable to the KSU PhD proposal. Now, having finalized those 4 feasibility assessments, I would like to pass it back to Scott to discuss the recommendations surrounding new program approval process in the future.
Thank you, Amy. Turning quickly to the final element of our analysis, we were asked to review the program approval process as it relates to CPE. Per KRS 164.020, CPE's statutory duties include, among other things, defining and approving the offering of all post-secondary degrees, certificates, and diploma programs, and reviewing, revising, and approving the missions of the state's universities. These 2 components of CPE's authority are highlighted on this slide, as they are the elements that are specifically relevant to SJR 170. If you could jump to the next slide, please. Thank you. In 1997, the Kentucky Post-Secondary Education Improvement Act included KRS 164.295, which, inter alia, outlined the programs that the 6 comprehensive universities could provide, including providing that graduate programs could be provided with CPE's approval.
Mr. Friedman, we
Yes.
are running a little short on time today. We've got that material. Could you go on to your legislative recommendations on this, please?
Sure, yes. So if you jump to the next slide, So we have some recommendations for legislative consideration, as well as some process recommendations that are included on the next slide. Legislatively, we believe that the missions of the public universities should be clarified in state statute, especially in light of the evolving landscape of higher education. Specifically, it would be helpful if, for each institution, statute clarified its place in the Commonwealth, particularly regarding research and doctoral programs, providing each institution with clarity, differentiation, and the opportunity to meaningfully innovate. Additionally, best practice across the country would suggest a clear separation of duties by and between the legislature and the coordinating entity. If the missions of the public institutions were clarified, the coordinating entity could more fully realize their statutory empowerment. And then finally, on the next slide, we also have, sorry, if you could jump to the next slide. Thank you. We also have 4 primary recommendations that we have provided to CPE for their consideration based on our review of practice and process and a review of practices and processes at peer coordinating boards and university systems. First, we suggest that there could be additional differentiation in terms of proposal requirements based on the types of new degrees being proposed. Currently, the CP process has a few different tracks, but several peers have greater differentiation in their processes. Second, we suggest an external review component be brought into the process, especially for those programs that either deviate from an institution's historical scope or that require significant financial investment. Third, we suggest increased transparency as it relates to the decision to approve or not approve a program, as well as publishing of the criteria that will be used to make program approval decisions. And finally, we suggest instilling an accountability mechanism to the process to enable a post-implementation review for approved programs to evaluate if those newly created programs are fulfilling their original goals and intent. We'll now turn it back to the committee for any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. We do have some individuals who'd sign up to speak. However, due to time, we're not going to be able to have time for that at this point. I will point out that on December 19th at 1 o'clock, the Interim Joint Committee on Agriculture is having a report from Deloitte specific to the Murray State proposal for a veterinary school distributive model. I believe that's probably what your comments were aligned to. We do have some members. I'm going to ask the members if we could hold off at this time because I'd like for us, this is an information gathering meeting. I'd like for us to have the opportunity to get through the SJR 179 report. If we have time, we'll go back to that at this time. So, President Thompson, if we could defer to the next item on our agenda, which Dr. Ryan Quarles, President of KCTCS, with a report on the SJR 179 report. President Quarles, if you and your team could identify yourself for the record, then I'll administer the oath and you can proceed.
Ryan Quarles, President of KCTCS.
James McCaslin, Acting Executive Director for the Project Management Office for KCTCS.
Phil Neal, Acting Executive Vice President and Provost for KCTCS.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for having us today. I once served on the Education Committee as a member of the State House Representative, so thank you for your service. Today I'm joined with Dr. Phil Neal, our Provost and Executive Vice President, as well as Dr. Jay McCaslin. We also have one of our regents in the audience today, our Student Regent Audra South. Thank you for joining us. Several of our presidents and cabinet members. Today we're going to go over our recommendations in response to Senate Joint Resolution 179, a recommendation set that our Board of Regents unanimously adopted just last Thursday as a package. And so it's a new day at KCTCS, and this joint resolution recommendations are just the beginning. But first, we have a lot to celebrate. Just very quickly, you all know we've been around for over 25 years. We educate 45% of all undergraduates in Kentucky. Our enrollment is up 7% from this time last year, and we project our enrollment could be as high as 16% higher from this time last year for the spring semester as well. And we always like to remind folks that we are the #1 in the nation for several years in a row for credentials awarded per capita by public two-year institutions. And we've educated well over 250,000 Kentuckians since starting. We also, just as recently as yesterday, have increased our